Hey everyone, what's up? This is Uri for Guerrilla Poker. In this video I'm gonna be covering a bunch of high stakes heads up no limit hands played by BERRI SWEET and makeboifin, who are in the midst of a heads up battle to the death, playing 200-400 on PokerStars for quite a while. I'm gonna end the video by covering a really big, really deep stacked interesting hand in No Limit Hold'em 6 Max. So let's dive into it. Okay. So, in our first hand, we're pretty deep stacked between BERRI SWEET and makeboifin, 280 big blinds deep. And keep in mind that whenever a hand is deeper stacked, players have less experience and they're generally gonna play more street poker. Kind of. It's the more interesting spots. When you're deep, you see the crazy stuff going on. So here, BERRI SWEET opens, makeboifin 3-bets him about 4x. BERRI calls, makeboifin c-bets 1/3 pot on queen 6 deuce rainbow. This is a very standard sizing, I've talked about this a lot. Board's very favorable for the 3-better, so you just c-bet your whole range for a small size, and here makeboifin will be c-betting ace highs, complete trash, just kind of everything. King of spades he checks. Even though king is a fairly good card for him, I'd expect him to barrel quite often there. And in that sense, the checking range on the king should probably be, well, first of all, a bunch of medium strength hands, after betting your whole range, jacks, 10s, 9s, classic examples of hands that are always going to check the turn. You want to have some traps, some give ups, some queens probably. So makeboifin checks, BERRI bets big, and makeboifin calls. Big bet here, indicating BERRI has a very polarized range. So in terms of a value range, I'd expect mostly a king or better. River queen of hearts, makeboifin checks, BERRI pots it and makeboifin calls, and this is kind of an interesting river to pot, because after you bet the turn that big, you don't really represent having many queens yourself. Maybe ace queen, but I don't think so. To fire a really big river bet either indicates that you think a king is strong enough to bet river really big, or it indicates you have some kind of super nutted hand like a boat. The issue here is, I think a boat would bet bigger than pot. So I think BERRI is likely trying to say that he does think that were he to have something like king jack king 10 in this situation, makeboifin's range would be wide enough where he could just pot the king for value, and I think that's probably going to be correct, but not 100% sure. So showdown, BERRI SWEET has the bluff, jack 8 of hearts, and makeboifin has ace of clubs, queen of spades for the really easy snap call. Only thing that's worth thinking about in this hand for BERRI SWEET is a bit about removal effects. When you have jack 8, the main thing that happens is that your opponent has a lot less pocket jacks and pocket 8s. And you need to think if that's a good thing or a bad thing, because if you think he's going to fold all his pocket jacks and pocket 8s to your big turn bet, then you don't mind, you're not really blocking anything relevant, and it's a good bluff. On the other hand, if, as is somewhat likely, makeboifin is still calling pocket jacks quite often on the turn and then folding them on the river, having the jack becomes quite bad. And since you have a lot of hands to choose from, I would guess that this bluff by BERRI is actually not very good. So what we're gonna do is quickly pull up a PioSOLVER solution just to confirm this specific thing that I'm saying. And I don't really want to sim a really deep heads up pot. What I'm going to do is sim 100 deep, or 100 and a bit deep, with kind of normal ranges. So we're going to have some inaccuracies, but I don't think anything too big. And we'll have BERRI with the large turn sizing and the large river sizing. Pot here is in the end, effectively it's like 120 deep, so I will make it something like that. I'm setting the sim up on my other screen as we're speaking. Okay, so looking at the simulation, first of all we see that the board with my ranges is actually not a full range bet for 1/3 pot, but that's not why we're here. We're here to look at something very specific. So here on the turn, you guys can see makeboifin's checking range, which, as I said, is first of all going to have 7s through jacks as kind of very obvious hands, and then some queens. He checks, BERRI decides to bomb, which is a good sizing here. And what you guys can see, which is kind of what I expected, is that makeboifin is still calling almost every combo of pocket jacks on the turn specifically. And that means that when you have a jack, it's actually a good turn bluff. But get to the river, And here, you know, Berry's barely betting any queens on the turn to begin with. So we get to the river. In Pio we can calculate the river, super accurate. So makeboifin checks. And we can see first of all that, as I kind of suspected, Berry can't actually pot a king for value. Here the size is even smaller than pot and he can't bet a king, which means that very probably the sizing he picked was inappropriate, or his betting range was inappropriate for the river. Of course this changes if you think makeboifin is donk betting on the queen or something like that, and then it might be different. In terms of bluffs, what you guys can see is that were Berry to bet, the main defined folding range is pocket jacks, pocket tens, and pocket nines. So you really want to avoid having a jack 10-9, and you can see that in PioSolver's bluffing choice, where PioSolver just goes with low cards, as the low pocket pairs folded a turn. And bluffing something like jack 8 is a fairly significant big blind size mistake. What I really like about seeing these kind of things in PioSolver is it shows you that these two guys, two of the best in the world, they're winging it, and they're making significant mistakes. So for everyone who thinks that, you know, people are copying the solver, definitely not happening. But here Berry's making a technical mistake that I think he shouldn't be making. So either he hasn't put in the work in No Limit Hold'em yet, because it's not his main game, or he has maybe an exploitative reason, because in the end the pot's really big and the solver spits out like this is -5 big blinds. But you know, if makeboifin is making some mistake, you get a timing teller. All these things are actually real things and could make you deviate from your decision. Now when we're looking at how do different types of players play, Doug Polk, for example, plays a very theoretical style of poker, and I don't think he would ever want to bluff the jack 8 of hearts here, very rarely. But BERRI SWEET definitely does not play a very theoretical style of poker. He's more getting in there with regards to, you know, if he thinks you don't have it, he's gonna call you with a bad hand, which we've seen quite a few times on the channel. Just something to think about. Okay, on to the next hand. In this hand, makeboifin raises, BERRI SWEET 3-bets. We're about 100 big blinds deep, and we get a queen 10-9 rainbow board. Very action flop, very connected. And if you think of hands like aces, kings, ace king, king jack, king queen, all these hands just make a bunch of strong stuff. So it's just a very dynamic board, definitely not one where you can just fire away a bunch of small bets. So flop goes check. At this point, both players' ranges could be a million things. Obviously we're going to discount strong hands a bit, but both ranges should still have traps. So turn king of hearts, Berry checks, makeboifin bets half pot, which presumably he could do with some kind of 2-pair hand or better. Berry calls. We get the river jack of spades making 5 to a straight, and Berry donk bets all in for twice the pot effectively. Here the main question is which of these two players is going to have an ace more. I don't really know. These 5 to a straight boards are really strange. I think very often just, you know, both players go all in with everything, so you kind of want to be the guy to go all in first and hope the other guy makes the mistake of hero folding, because ranges here are wide enough where you're not really supposed to ever fold to a shove when you're chopping. So yeah, hands that get showdown. Both players are chopping, but still interesting to look at their hands. So Berry shows 9-7 of hearts. Very standardly played, definitely a hand that wants to check flop and check turn. Facing the turn bet, you know, you have a pair and a flush draw, so why not call? Makeboifin checked back a double gutter, started bluffing it on the turn, and then made the kind of, I think, standard call on the river. I think you kind of have to make these. Okay, that's it for this hand. In this hand, we're 124 big blinds deep. Another 3-bet pot, makeboifin raises, Berry 3-bets, and makeboifin calls, and we have another one of the dry boards, king 6 two-tone, where we see a small c-bet from Berry. Turn 5 of diamonds, and Berry's notching the sizing up. You know, like I said, small c-bets mean you're betting a lot of your range, very mixed. Sizing up means we're very often now not going to be betting like ace jack high and stuff like that. It's a lot more, you know, strong hands and bluffs, or strong hands and draws. So here, surprisingly, on like a king 6-5 and heads up, the value threshold is not a king. I wouldn't be shocked if Berry could bet 8s for this size. I don't know where the exact threshold is in terms of pocket pairs, 7s, 8s, 9s, somewhere around there. Berry should be able to triple barrel. So he bets turn, makeboifin calls. and he then third pots on the river 7. So third potting on the 7 indicates a hand strength that's, you know, roughly pocket 8s, a 7, maybe an a6, somewhere in that area, where you bet for value twice and now it's getting a bit thin, so you just block bet. Makeboifin goes all in, indicating, you know, either a bluff or generally you want to have a king or better to do this. And BERRI calls. BERRI has a 9-7 of clubs, so c-bet on a flop, turn a gut shot bet, river a 7 block bet seems very standard, and then he decides to bluff catch, which he's going to do sometimes. Makeboifin, again, makeboifin running kind of good in the showdowns that we've been seeing on the channel so far. You know, just having the nuts a lot. Where here, you know, against this line, there's no real other way to play king 8. It's just call, call, shove. Very tough to make a mistake unless, like, you chicken out and you're afraid of shoving. But these guys have been playing enough, and I'm sure Makeboifin is a strong enough player to recognize this spot. That does it for the heads up part of this video, and we'll now skip ahead to the really interesting 6-max hand I promised. So this hand is actually not as deep as I thought. It's about 285 big blinds deep. 6-max ranges are tighter than heads up to begin with, so that's pretty deep. We have Tino, Mulder, and Dude 1. Tino limps, Dude isolates to $400. I will say that limping blind versus blind is something that you generally don't want to do unless you're playing very high stakes where the rake is low, or you're playing anti-games, and in this case these guys are doing both of those things. But if you're playing in your standard home game, casino game, or NL 200, NL 500, limping is not really something I would recommend starting to do. Either way, Dude 1 raises, Tino Mulder 3 bets, Dude 4 bets, and Tino 5 bets. So we have a 5-bet pot BVB. There's already 12,420 in the pot, so what's that, roughly 128 or something like that big blinds in the pot before seeing the flop, which is insane. So huge pot, and it's really important to understand here. And there's 128 big blinds in the pot already. These guys have like 22k behind, more or less, so the SPR is not very large, and it's going to be tough to get away from something here. So 5-5-3 rainbow boards, Tino Mulder c-bet small, which is what you want to be doing at these kind of stack depths, because there is not much behind. You can let the other guy kind of float and maybe suck out on you because he's not winning a lot extra compared to the pot size. So Dude 1 min raises and Tino Mulder clicks it back, Dude 1 calls. So we have kind of like a micro stakes hand, but actually these sizings do make sense. Like I said, at these stack depths, it makes sense to put in like the tiny amount of pressure, although I do think these guys might be slightly overdoing it. So 5-5-3 rainbow, we have 5-bet pre-flop, or is it, yeah, 5-bet pot pre-flop, 3-bet on a flop. Tino Mulder checks the turn, faces like a 10% pot bet from Dude 1, which again, either something very nutted. I think with the action here, something very nutted would have to be aces or better, pretty much. And calls, and there's not much behind. He check calls on the 10 of diamonds river, and surprise, surprise, both players show aces. So that's what happens when two players have aces. And it actually reminds me of a hand that I played a long time ago, where I stacked off against a really spewy reg, or we had like a ton of dynamics in history at the time for like 260 big blinds with aces. And you know, when you get it in really deep against someone and you have aces, there's actually something a bit sad. It's funny because when you go all in with aces 300 big blinds deep, you'd think you want the other guy to call you, right? But very, very often in these 6-max or full ring settings, when it's super deep and both players go all in, they just both have aces. So in a way, you'd rather the other guy fold. At least you win some money. Aces, you know, you're just chopping the blinds up pretty much. Okay, so that does it for this video. If you guys enjoyed the video, please like and subscribe to the channel. Go check out our website. We have a really cool course about how to improve your red line. We have GTO preflop ranges for online NL 100, NL 2000, and for live cash games for a casino environment where people are opening bigger and they're deeper and the rake is different, etc. And a ton of other cool stuff that we have planned coming out soon. So, hope to see you there.